maybe we do a quick MLB update. We're gonna save most of it for our opening week, but Evan and I did have a few quick thoughts, I think, about free agency. I don't know if you've been tracking, Zach, so please feel free to jump in. But Ev, I'll let you have the stage first.
Yeah, I kind of just wanted to go on a Braves rant, and come to the defense of the Braves for not re-signing Freddie Freeman. Obviously, I get a lot of the outrage from fans coming off that World Series win for the Braves and what Freddie Freeman means to that organization. But if you break down the trade for Olson, the contract details, like what the Braves did here is absolutely brilliant, and it extends their window so much. Given that they got Olson for a lot cheaper. Obviously, they had to give up prospects, but none of the prospects they gave up are good. Christian Pache is the biggest name, but he is just not developed into what they hoped he would be. So you get a younger guy for 2 more years on the contract for about like $10 million or so a year cheaper. And a guy that actually, if you go off WAR, which I know Cy, not a huge advanced analytics guy, actually had a better year than Freddie last year. So I just think that was a brilliant move. Obviously, it's so hard. I think a lot of GMs make the mistake of kind of giving not even necessarily the hometown discount, but always extending like your big name kind of loyalty contract type thing. So I think what the Braves did there was brilliant. Obviously, it's a shame, but like, and even if that's a small downgrade at the first base position, which it probably is for the next couple of years, like that lineup is so stacked, it's not going to matter. And they were able to re-sign guys like Rosario, Marcell Ozuna coming back. Like they're just absolutely loaded once again. And I feel like they're not getting as much buzz as they should. So I'll leave it at that with the Braves. A couple other free agents I'll mention, but Cy, I'll kick it over to you for any of your takes on some of the big shortstops that signed and some of the other big news.
Well, I'm gonna just say something about the Braves real quick. I think it was a smart business decision, and I could never blame Alex Anthopoulos in that front office for really anything, because they put together a team that won the World Series last year against all odds with the injuries they had and such. However, with that being said, I do think Freddie Freeman was a big part of that, and that's not just for his ability to hit and play first base, which is he's at the top, and I would say both of those things. I would say it's also in large part due to his leadership, and he has been a Brave since the moment he signed with Atlanta till the moment, till now, until he hit free agency. And I think on all indications, he would have loved to have come back to the Braves. They're willing to pay him the contract which he rightfully deserved. What the Dodgers gave him is what he deserved. Freddie Freeman has been a top 5 player in the MLB for the better part of a decade. Sure, if you look at WAR. And I also want to clarify, I'm not against advanced analytics. I'm just against using only advanced analytics as a metric for players' abilities, because WAR is not a perfect statistic by any chance. I made the point of Brandon Nimmo was like a top 20 WAR player in his last full season. Like, do we actually think he's a top 20 player in the MLB? I'm a Mets fan, and I would say no. So I can't just use WAR as a descriptive factor for what makes one player better than another. And with that being said, Freddie Freeman, and I think few people would dispute this, has been one of the best players and one of the best leaders in the MLB for his entire career, and just led this team to a World Series, and is still I would say at the peak of his, or has been playing to the peak of his career. And I don't fault them for getting Olson, but it does seem like the way they handled it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, including players on the Braves, including Freddie Freeman, including fans, and including people even outside of the organization. And my biggest qualm that I have with it is, if you think the smart business move is to go with Olson, and let me clarify, I think Olson is an incredible first baseman, and I don't fault them for taking him. The proof is in the pudding, though, that with Olson's $189 million contract, they had the money necessary to re-sign Freeman, and clearly they preferred Olson on a bit of a longer deal. But the thing is, if that is the case, they should have been way more transparent with Freddie Freeman, because it looks like, for the most part, he was left out of the loop. And I understand you don't owe him anything, but when the guy has been with the organization since day one, he's been one of, like, this leader. He's been the guy that, like, this incredible family man that represents your team so well. He helps you win a World Series when the cards are down. He deserves more respect than to have had it handled the way that I think it was handled. So although I think business-wise, maybe they made a smart move, and they won't regret them, I do think they're going to be a very good team going forward. I think it was very just sort of holistically, like, not totally fair to Freeman in the way they handled it, and that's reflected on how a lot of the players and fans responded to it, because they're not just saying it because they traded Freeman or because they let Freeman walk and traded for Olsen. They're saying it because they felt like maybe they weren't as informed as they wish they would have been. So that's my take on the Braves. If you have anything to add to that, Ev, I'll let you. If not, I can talk about some of the signings.
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick too. Like, I mean, I think it was the intention of not even like there was no intention for him to re-sign. Like that was kind of the vibe that Freeman was upset about. Like his agent said that the Braves only called them twice, and just kind of talked in more generic terms. Never really serious about signing him to this monster deal that he ended up getting in LA. Now, however, I will say it was a complete opposite story with Correa going to the Twins, and the Twins are loading up from free agency. I mean, I can't think of another year that the Twins have invested this amount of money in some of these players. So curious to see what you guys think about that signing and maybe a couple others as well.
Dude, what is Correa doing? And what are the Twins doing? That's my response to that one. Like, it makes absolutely no sense to me. Why take a 3-year contract, regardless of the opt-out situation? And then why are the Twins signing a $100 million 3-year deal when you're not going to – I mean this with no offense, but I don't see them coming out there winning a World Series in that window. It doesn't make sense. If you sign them long-term, maybe it makes more sense to me. And to Correa, dude, I don't know. Like, this, my perspective is, Correa, why are you taking a 3-year deal when, okay, maybe the market didn't give you that massive deal that you were hoping for, but – like, you just came off the greatest season that you could have had war-wise. I don't think your peak is much higher than that. And instead of capitalizing on that and getting a long-term contract, even if maybe it's like, 10 to 20 million less than what you would have hoped for, you take a 3-year deal. What if you go out and you get injured again? What if you don't play up to your performance? I would have rathered him sign a 1-year deal for a higher AAV, which I guarantee you he could have gotten from one of these teams, and then hit free agency again if he was going to do that, then sign a 3-year deal, even if there's an opt-out, because he's getting less money as a result of it. The Correa one made no sense to me whatsoever. That's my take on it. I'll let Ev comment.
Yeah, that one was one of the more random free agency signings I'd seen in a while. Because I didn't hear much Correa to Twins buzz. I did hear Trevor Story to Twins buzz. That one was a surprise, but I mean, more power to him. Like, I fully expect him to opt out next year. I don't remember what the exact terms were, but I fully expect him to opt out next year and try it again, assuming he has a good year. Money to spend after they were able to ship off Donaldson, which I thought was a really nice move, but their pitching is just like, I have a feeling there are more pitching moves in the works, and if they can get better pitching, then they could compete. But yeah, it's a little random on the Twin side as well, but that lineup can really hit. So I don't really know what the plan is there, but we'll have to see. But yeah, I fully expect Correa to opt out, assuming he has a good year, and then run it back next year. And the Orioles might even take a more competitive bid at him, even though the rumor is they offered him 10 for 300. So let's take a chance next offseason. But yeah, and then Trevor Story took a really, really cheap deal.
Yeah, what the heck?
With Boston. I think it's an incredible fit for him. He can play second this year next to Bogarts. And then if the Red Sox want to move on from Bogarts next year when his contract's up, they can move Trevor back to short. I think it's a great fit in Fenway. Happy for Trevor. Coming off a down year, and then the Coors effect probably hurts his market a little bit. But yeah, we'll see. I think it's a great fit. I think he took less money than he needed to, but kind of to Sai's point about Correa, gives him some security, given that he has some risk with the down year and the Coors effects.
Yeah, I think the Story contract was like one of the best deals of the offseason by a team. I think the Red Sox, I'm shook. 6 years, 160 mil is around what he went for. I mean, Francisco Lindor's deal was a 341 mil. Corey Seager's deal was 325 mil. What we just talked about, Correa, who had over 100 mil for a 3-year deal. Simeon, I think, is making more money, if not close to as much money as Story, and he's not even a shortstop. Like, even if Story's playing second base, I'm actually really surprised by how little Story took. But I think maybe he just really wanted to play in Boston and saw an opportunity to compete. Although I don't blame Story as much because I understand that contract. He's getting 6 years, so at least he's got a security for that period of time. I'm just really confused because Corey Seager's contract was 325 mil, and Correa only took a 3-year 100 mil, and Seager a 6-year 160. really confused by the market for shortstops, or I guess just the market in general. That those deals don't make a whole lot of sense to me when I look at it holistically. But Story to the Red Sox makes so much sense to me, and I'm happy for both sides. I think both benefit from that deal. So that I got no complaints about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you evaluate it from like a risk management perspective, right? Like Seager has the injury risk. Seager has the maybe not a shortstop long-term risk. Correa, maybe just doesn't have the upside. Like I would argue Trevor has the most upside out of these three guys, given the steals potential, the defense being able to stick at shortstop, like all those types of things, and still having the power depending on how it comes off, not being a quarter. So a little bit surprised, but I mean, I'm not happy for Trevor because he's in our division now because I love Trevor, but good for him. I think it'd be a good fit. And we'll see what happens next offseason if they move him back to short, if Bogey moves on. But shortstop's such a deep position now. Like every team has a good shortstop, it feels like. You think about it from a fantasy baseball perspective, it's so easy to find good shortstops. So, I don't know. I just don't think there were a lot of openings. But
are the Dodgers the most stacked roster of all time? I mean, this is getting absurd.
Definitely arguably the most stacked offense of all time. I think pitching wise, we've seen definitely better rotations. I do think the Dodgers rotation is great, but I think their ceiling for the top guys isn't quite as high as the ceiling for the top guys of some other rotations. But if you want to talk about lineup, it's going to be hard to argue with the exception of like the old school Yankees lineups, and it's hard to make that comparison. However, they don't seem to have a weakness in their entire lineup at their respective positions. So it's kind of ridiculous how good that team is.
So here's what I'll say, though. They didn't win the World Series last year. And they didn't really get better. I mean, they got slightly better in that Freddie Freeman is probably a slight upgrade over Corey Seager. And that's about it, I would say. No? Otherwise, the same team.
I think Mookie Betts is way better than he was last year. Last year was an anomaly compared to his career averages. I also think Cody Bellinger is better than he was last year. I think some of those players will rebound. I know for a fact Mookie is. I mean, Mookie was an MVP just a few years ago. Last year was a bit of an anomaly. I think he was playing hurt for a decent bit of the season. I don't expect Mookie to be that. I expect Mookie to be right back in the MVP race next year because he has been for pretty much every season he's been in except for last year. So just Mookie bouncing back and then getting Freddie Freeman as a part of a lineup that had guys like Will Smith coming into their own. You got Muncy playing great. You got, all the way. Your worst hitter is AJ Pollock, dude. Like you could be in much worse situations. That lineup is nasty.
For sure. We'll see how it plays out. Blue Jays are another team winning the offseason. That roster is straight up loaded. Pitching, hitting, they got it all. But I think that's all I'll mention on baseball.